Dune Part 2 has been delayed all the way till next year. Communications between writers and studios breaking down. We preview the 2024 movie release schedule, and the MCU gets an official timeline. That news and more awaits you after this. Welcome to Multiverse News, your source for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name's Matthew Carroll, and with me today on the panel we have Jay Sisson from Commute the Podcast. What's going on, Jay?
Not too much. Happy to be here and talk a little news, even though most of it's pretty sad.
Yeah, lots of sad news today. Jay Scotty, how are you dealing with all the sad news?
Well, it's good to be here despite the little bit of a slow news week, and as you mentioned, it's kind of a sad news week, but I'm confident we'll find a way to spice it up. See what I did there? Spice it up. Yeah.
Oh, I get it. No one else does, because we haven't talked about that story yet. Well, I guess it was in the intro.
Yeah.
And Haley Hobbs. What's going on, Haley Hobbs?
Oh, living the dream.
Good. Well, that's good. We're going to dive right into these stories. We do have a limited number of them, and they are just bummers mostly, but we are going to do our 2024 look ahead and see what's going on in the 2024 movie slate since we're nearing the end of 2023. So that'll be a lot of fun. Up first, Warner Brothers has officially delayed Dune Part 2 until next year, scheduled now to release March 15th, 2024. The move is unsurprising given the ongoing concurrent Writers Guild of America and SAG-AFTRA strikes, but no less disappointing for Dune diehards. The hotly anticipated sequel took Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire's original release date, shifting that film back by a month. The animated feature, Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim, was also delayed about 8 months, moving from April 12th, 2024 to December 13th, 2024. It's not all doom and gloom for Dune fans, though. Denis Villenueve teased a possible third installment for the series. Does the possibility of a Dune trilogy do enough to assuage the pain we feel from these seemingly inevitable delays?
To quote Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader from Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, no.
I was like, what is he going to say right now? I was like, there's so many things that he's going to, but that's the one you chose.
Yep. No, this is really disappointing, but not unexpected rather, at all. I do think it's the right move when you have a cast that's as stacked as this movie is, and it's as anticipated as it is. It's only right to give it the proper promotion and publicity. And have, I look forward to all those interviews and press tours. Like I just eat all that stuff up. So to be denied that, I think would have been a real shame, as much as I wanted to see Dune Part 2 sooner rather than later. So as far as these other delays go, they don't really impact me all that much. I am both a fan of Godzilla and The Lord of the Rings, but I did not even know this Godzilla Kong movie was coming out, and that animated Lord of the Rings film is one that I just keep forgetting about until I hear about it again. I feel like it's been in the works for a really long time, but I do want to focus on what Denis Villeneuve teased with a possible third film and making this a trilogy. If that is to take place, I guess he would be adapting the second book, which is Dune Messiah. So I won't spoil any of the plot there, but I do have some idea of where it goes. So I have some reading to do, and I would really like to see more and more Dune movies. So, I'll take the good with the bad here. And I think this is shaking out the way that it's supposed to. And hopefully we don't get more delays.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about is the rest of 2023, which is looking pretty sparse at this point. And I'm thinking about a movie like The Marvels, because if you're looking at that and you're saying, if you're in charge of that movie, you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, we're not going to be able to put our talent out there if this is still going on, which is why Dune moved. So we can't put the stars of the film out there to promote it, which is a bummer. But at the same time, I think if you're Kevin Feige and company, I think you're looking at that and saying, all right, well, I can still go out and promote it, and Nia DaCosta can still go out and promote it, and now we don't have any competition, and we can dominate the IMAX screens, which it's already been announced that The Marvels will have have access to plenty more IMAX screens now that Dune has moved. So I almost think it's in their favor, that particular film at least, it's probably in their favor to stick in that release date and just eat the lack of promotion that they'll be able to generate and try to lean into just the fact that they'll be one of the only movies on the slate for the rest of the year. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that movie got moved, though. You know, I wouldn't be surprised. We're going to talk about the 2024 slate here in a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised to see those movies move, too. It's really just going to depend on when the strikes get resolved. And the sooner, the less you'll see of this. And the later, the more you'll see of this.
All right, up next, in more disappointing news and the cause of the aforementioned delays, just 2 weeks removed from what seemed to be the most promising progress made since the writer's strike began, negotiations between the WGA and the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers have reached a complete standstill. Both parties have publicly slammed each other in the last week, with sources from each indicating there are currently no discussage. All right.
If that's not a word, it should be.
It definitely should be. I really enjoy our discussages. It sounds like a Pauly Shore word. Yeah, man, we just stayed up all night and had some discussage.
Yeah, buddy.
Both parties have publicly slammed each other in the last week, and sources from each indicating there are currently no discussions for returning to the negotiations table. Are we at all surprised that these talks fell through, or at the level of apparent animosity on display here? Is anyone holding their breath?
Yeah, I am not necessarily surprised because this is the first offer, and that kind of is always what happens when there's a first offer. You shoot down the first offer and you say it's not fair to try to get a better offer on the next time around. But I think what is encouraging, even though the report is that these sides do not have a talk scheduled for the future, I think what is encouraging is that they are at least talking about the things that seem to be the major roadblocks. So there is discussion about AI. We talked a couple weeks ago about how the studios did offer that at least one human has to be credited on every work. So that's good that they're talking about that kind of stuff at least, even if we're not seeing progress in that department. It does seem like they are trying to resolve the writers' strike before they resolve the actors' strike. Like, there hasn't really been any sort of discussion on the actors' side yet, which I guess does make sense because you can move a lot of these productions back into some type of stage if you have the writers back on board. So that does seem to be the focus. So I guess, even though there's no movement, I think the talking is encouraging. I think this is kind of how first offers always go anyway. But ultimately, the industry is really starting to bleed at this point, and I think you will start to see a lot more of these conversations happen between the studios and the writers. I think we will see this end sooner than later, I think, because of how bad it is in the industry right now, with all of the delays, with fall TV basically completely going away, fall movies completely going away. The industry is kind of coming to its knees a little bit through this. So I think, I think we're on to something, at least hopefully somewhat soon.
We're seeing all these streaming services drop a bunch of established shows. Willow, we read today about Westworld, is no longer on Max. And it seems a little uncouth that they're dropping things that people would be getting pay for right now, residuals for. It's the only thing they can really, they being actors, be getting paid for. And it's kind of not, it continues to not be a good look on those studios, on those streaming services. And so you do make a really good point about, they're going to focus on the writers because they have to get that machine churning again before they bring back the actors. And I think the actors have a little more publicity clout maybe than the writers do. I don't know. This is just such a awful time for Hollywood. I hope that it gets resolved soon.
Yeah, I think we're in the 18th week right now of the writer's strike. So that's
130 some odd days.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty, that's a lot longer, I think, than anyone thought it was going to go.
However long this show's been going, that's how long the strike's been going on.
Yeah.
The two are not related.
just to be clear. It's crazy to think about the way that this is going so long. Whenever I hear about these strikes, I always just kind of assume, it's a negotiation tactic, which it is, inevitably.
Sure.
But it's going to get resolved. Someone's going to come to the table. But I think we're just at a place where, as you guys discussed with Jeff last week, like streaming is just dying or whatever, or like, I just think we're having a retraction in the industry because they've been putting too many bets out there. Not enough things have been hitting. Definitely not enough things have been making money. A lot of these companies just don't even make money. They're just trying to get eyeballs, but with no real end game. And so it's like, eventually you have to turn to something that like is going to pay money for the thing. And like, we always joke about how like, oh man, these streaming services are getting to the point where it's getting close to cable costs again. But the thing about cable costs is you paid $60, $70 a month and you watched ads constantly. So it's like this weird, like that's how things used to get paid for. And now, we're all getting streaming services, but like we don't get ads anymore and we pay for some things and we get free trials and everybody shares passwords. And I just don't know how how the industry, and they're making more content than ever. It just feels like the industry is over bloated to some degree and it's going to have some sort of retraction. And so like who's going to blink first? And like they're fighting over a shrinking pie and it just feels like a scary time.
Yeah, it's the epitome of too much of a good thing.
Mm.
Yeah. The one other part of this I want to bring up is that apparently after these negotiations broke down, the AMPTP, they like released their terms to the public. So they were like, hey, this is everything that we agreed to and this is everything that we asked for. So I think that kind of serves two purposes or illustrates two things rather. Through what we gleaned from their terms is that it seems like the money is not the issue. It seems like they made a lot of concessions when it came to how much the writers would be making. It seems like it's still the issues that are not being resolved here revolve around the technology. They revolve around the AI as well as, what I guess just like when it comes to writer's room, when it comes to like a streaming service or like a limited series or whatever. So I think it illustrates the point that the producers are willing to make concessions, but at the same time, it kind of gives me the impression that they were never really going in there to negotiate. They were kind of trying to strong arm and like have a standoff, and they weren't going to make any concessions after that point. So I do think we're going to have to start to see a little bit of wiggle room from the writers, but we all know who the bad guys are here, and it's still the producers.
So everything changes all the time. So you work in a place, you have to adopt change because change is how we move forward. And we're talking about Hollywood not changing. We're talking about wanting them to stay the same way they've always been. And I'm not making this point for one side or the other. It's just a thought that struck me that this is super interesting that, like I listened to the Parks and Recollection podcast because I love that show. And that's, it's on hiatus right now because now it's caught up to the strike timeline. And, the writer's assistant, Greg, that's on the show, he talks about the writer's room and all these people that were in it. And I don't know, it's just very interesting that I'm sure they want to adopt the change to a point. I think that's the impasse, right? But this is something that we almost don't want it to change because this is how things are created. I don't know. It's such an interesting conundrum. That was a ramble. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It goes back. I think that my first reaction to this writer's strike, our like second episode when they first announced it, was like, I don't know, pushing it back against AI and like the changes in the technology is just, it's not possible in the long run. Eventually it's going to happen. Eventually these tools will be used and these things will change, and like the industry is going to have to change and grow with time. It's just a matter of like how that's done ethically and protecting the art form. And like, I don't know. Part of me is like, some studios are going to use AI to make stuff. It's probably true. But then like, I would hope that us humans could tell that when we're connecting to other humans that are creating stuff versus like sort of just regurgitated stuff. But then again, so much of TV is so regurgitated, and it's like, I don't know, man, it's tough. I feel like the people who are really creating stuff will never be really replaced, but the whole like middle class of writers and actors could get like swallowed up by AI eventually,
Yeah, like AI
terrible.
could write a new CSI network show.
Oh, for
but
sure.
It couldn't write a Barbie. Like it couldn't write that movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so where's the middle there? That's crazy. I don't know.
Well, my understanding is that the writers want like a full-on ban on AI, where
Right.
Sure.
I think the producers have made concessions, like we kind of mentioned. It's like a human will always be credited, and if an AI script is submitted and you're hired to do a rewrite on that or something like that, that's not going to impact like what you get paid just because there's AI involved. So again, kind of to your point, Matt, and like we've talked about on this show many times, I do think the writers are going to have to, concede a little bit and accept that for better or for worse, AI is a tool to be utilized, but we do have to be very mindful and ethical about, what restraints we put on it.
Such a reductive thing to be like, hey, this machine's going to write this, and then like you take a pass. And yet, is it
weird.
different than one writer taking a pass and then a next writer it's just, oh my gosh, it's such a weird ethical craziness.
Yeah. The writer's room thing is another big impasse too that you mentioned a little bit ago, Scotty. It's that idea of like, how are you paying somebody for their work? Writers are traditionally hired for a set amount of time to make a thing. So the proposal of a writer's room sort of being limited to a daily rate, that's a pretty big sticking point. Because if you're a writer, you don't want to hear that. It's like, well, you're going to bring me in like 3 days and pay me this measly amount of money for my work, or you're going to give me that job security of being able to be in a room and commit to a project.
Sure.
That's going to be just as much of an impasse as the AI thing, I think, on some level.
Yeah. And to me, that's not, like, I don't know. I think I just have two very different sides of myself that are, like, totally on board with, like, the writers know their business better than me. Like, I think that, like, if they're asking for these things, it probably are things that really matter. And then there's part of me that just says, like, well, yeah, some shows won't have writer rooms, but if shows can function well without writer rooms, it's something that they'll learn, and then shows will over time adapt. If it's still making good television, maybe writers' rooms were wasteful on some shows. Maybe they don't always need to be a room. Maybe it was better to be done over Slack or whatever. Like, who knows? Like, there may be other ways than everybody sitting in a room. Or the opposite is true. If they're right, the shows with writer rooms will succeed and the shows without will fail because writer rooms are either important or they're not. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's such I'm of two minds on all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and you say makes for a good show. That's so subjective.
Sure.
What a good show is to me isn't necessarily what my parents think is a good show, and there's a lot of really crappy TV out there that some people really love, and that's great. That's fine. I don't care, but yeah, it's such a weird thing. Ugh.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned the CSIs can be, like, infinitely recreated. Like, up until, the mid-90s, shows didn't have overarching plots and things like that. And, like, they were just these, like, cut and paste stories that were sort of, like, placed over each other. And then you've got, like, the way AI works when it pulls from 1,000 different images and makes a new image, like, you've got that sort of concept. And what if it's doing that with stories? It's pulling from stories. Well, you get these, like, reports all the time. Oh, that movie was a ripoff of this book that was a small book that no one knew about, and they stole it and made this movie out of it now and just changed all the names. Basically all the characters were the same, and people complain about that kind of stuff. But, like, AI could easily do that, and, like, it's happening even when real writers are doing it. So I just don't even know. It's like, it's complex. Up next, Marvel Studios has released a trailer for Marvel Studios, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, an official timeline. What a mouthful of a name. 2 colons. I don't feel like you should never get 2 colons. I'm sorry.
This is like a Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2 situation. Or
yeah,
part
it
1
really
situation.
is. It really is.
Watch your mouth, Jay.
It's a new coffee table book that serves as an official guide to the MCU timeline. The 344-page book contains exclusive infographics, timelines, and stills that aim to be the go-to resource for fans and filmmakers who are hoping to connect the dots and truly understand the web of interconnection between the different Marvel Studios movies and streaming series. It will deconstruct every moment from the 15-year history of the MCU and cover everything from the first film with 2008's Iron Man to the upcoming second season of the Disney Plus series Loki, and is available for pre-order, releasing October 24th. how are we feeling about getting an official timeline for the MCU? And is this a worthy addition, deserving a place in the collector's stash?
I'm somebody who likes to have a coffee table book, don't get me wrong, but I like them to be evergreen. And the thing that stresses me out about this book is that it's only through Loki season 2. And I'm like, excuse me? We're not done yet here. And I don't know, they'll probably do a series of it, but I'm too OCD and completionist to buy one book and hopefully, you don't know, is it going to be part of more series? It's not, it doesn't work for me. However, people seem very, very excited about that, and I get it. I saw the trailer and kind of the glimpses, and they're going to probably give us a lot of really cool behind-the-scenes stuff, which I do love, so, you know, I'm going to be one of two minds on this. We'll see which one wins.
We all have two wolves within us this week.
Yeah. Two loath wolves.
Two loath wolves.
Yeah, when I was growing up, I had this, like, Marvel character encyclopedia, and it was like one of my favorite books to go grab and just kind of thumb through, and like really helped like me become a fan of these characters. And especially when the movies started coming out, I was like, oh, I have, you know, some idea of who this character is long before the days of like Wikipedia being, you know, something people accessed every day. But like my big thing on this is like I'm excited about the exclusive content, like these infographics, the stills and stuff like that we've never seen before. As an MCU completionist, I'm excited about that. But the one thing that I'm like simultaneously like hopeful and a little like stressed out about is like, okay, so Spider-Man Homecoming is one of my favorite MCU movies, but it's always had that problem where we see the opening scene take place in 2012 and then it says 8 years later. And I've never been able to like rectify that in my mind. I don't know if Feige's been on record to like fix that, and then you throw in there the fact that like retroactively they made you know, Peter Parker that kid that showed up in Iron Man 2. So I'm just curious if we're gonna get an answer that satisfies when it comes to how this timeline actually all factors together, or if it's going to be another one of those situations where like afterwards we're like, we kind of hate it, like it's going to be another Scrody situation. We're like, no, this doesn't add up. This is ruining what I enjoyed previously.
From what I understand, that particular thing was just said that it was a mistake.
Okay.
Like the 8 years was just wrong. Like it's just straight up wrong. Like I think the filmmaker came out and was like, "Yeah, we just like put the wrong number." And it's like, what are you doing? Like how? Because that if you just take that one thing, the 8 years later, it all works. But it's like, yeah, but that's you put 8 years later on the screen. That's a real big mistake. Quill is mad about these mistakes.
As he should be. It's
continuity
inexcusable.
errors.
He's probably mad because he's either a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or The Defenders, which probably will not get mentioned in this and will make a lot of people so mad. Like, people are going to be like, wait, I thought it was always MCU or whatever. And people are still getting in arguments about that. Like, no, the Matt Murdock from here is the Matt Murdock in the new one. And, like, everybody thinks, like, Jessica Jones is going to show up in every property for the past 8 years or whatever. And, like, and they always think, like, Chloe Bennett's going to show up and be like, oh, yeah, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was real or whatever, and like don't come at me, okay? Like I know there's people who listen to this and they're writing a 1-star review right now, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is MCU canon or whatever. But I'm just saying, like this book is probably not going to mention those two things, and people are going to be big mad about it.
I love the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is real. Like somehow it's like a Mandela effect situation. Like we all dreamed it. Like, no, it's real. It's in this book.
Part of it was, part of it wasn't. So are they going to put part of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in there? Like the first, what is it?
I can almost guarantee they will ignore every second of it.
Through the Winter Soldier stuff?
Yeah, I think they're going to ignore, because it wasn't in any of the trailer.
Banned books list.
Yeah, banned books. That's the thing that bothers me most about this is that the Defenders and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I mean, and other shows that were in the MCU canon prior are not going to be in this. And what is kind of impressive, though, about this book is the fact that it's we get this all the time. Like you look up the Fast and the Furious series and try to find out like, wait, what happens when? And they'll have like a graphic, and it's like a graphic. You know, it's like a one single picture on a web page that shows you here's how the Fast and the Furious movies lay out. You know, part 3, the ending of part 3 happens before part 4, and this one, you know, a couple little things at a time. This is such a complicated universe. They're taking 344 pages to expound on the the timeline, because I've seen some of these timelines go around, like, here's the definitive MCU timeline, and it's so complicated you can't fit it on one page, and the fact that they expanded it to 344 pages is kind of amazing.
I mean, you could buy it to have for like self-defense if somebody breaks into your house.
Yeah.
Pick it up and smack them up in the head with it.
Yeah.
'Cause I bet it's a hefty kid.
I bet it is. I think you're right, though, Haley. They definitely should have waited till the end of a phase. It just makes sense. Like,
Yeah, this is not okay with me.
yeah, you know what it made me think, because there was it said in the article, or in the news there, that it was made for fans and for filmmakers.
Oh, right.
Which I think is very funny. But it made me think, like, they had that meeting a few months ago, or like it was like 6 months, a year ago, where all of the people went out to discuss, like, they did a retreat for all the creators of MCU to discuss how the multiverse was going to work, like make some definitive rules around the multiverse. And it makes me wonder if they went out to that retreat and they were like, all right, we just need a really good reference guide. Can someone make that? And like, oh, just publish it. Just publish it. It's fine.
Those shills, they'll buy it. Don't worry.
Yeah. We made it for in-house, but it's fine. They'll buy that. Come on.
It's also annoying, like the IGN article is like, or Marvel Studios laying out complete MCU timeline. And I'm like, it's not complete. It can't be complete. We're not done yet. Why are you doing this false advertising? I'm very mad about this.
You have the Marvels coming out like less than a month after it comes out.
Yeah, how very dare you?
How very dare you? I had Star Trek Seen It. I bought it in like 2008. And it was, at that point, it was all 5 Star Trek series and all the movies. So it was like all of the Star Trek that existed. And it was like, and it had been off the air for like 10 years. So it just felt like, yeah, I got all of Star Trek Seen It. And then they started coming out with like the 2009 Star Trek movie. And then they continued making it on television. And now I have this thing that's like a relic of like, this is like my childhood Star Trek Seen It. And now there's all this other stuff.
They're not going to do another book either. So you're going to buy this, and then they're going to keep making Marvel movies. And then someday they're going to be like, all right, end of the MCU. And you're going to be looking at that book with such rage every day sitting on your bookshelf.
I'm so not buying
and you're going to be like, it's not done. They told this whole other story afterwards.
We'll be in nursing homes, like clutching it, like, they told us we'd get more.
Haley's has like little notes and scribbles where she's adding in all the notes.
When I'm in the asylum.
Yeah, exactly. You've got your walls are covered in it like the Joker or something.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's a magical series.
Haley adds in every episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all the events that happen.
Like with notebook paper. I am kind of a hypocrite because I did just buy the Star Wars Timelines book, but I feel like that's different because Star Wars went through the whole Disney canon change and stuff, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's necessary with Star Wars. It's like, what's canon? I don't know.
You want to talk about getting crazy? Let's talk about the Star Wars timeline.
Oh, man.
You want to get crazy? We can get crazy.
Yeah.
Because news is so thin, Haley's going to read out of the Star Wars Timelines book.
I've been watching so many, like, retrospectives on Ahsoka, like her character arc, just to try to see if I've missed anything, since now I watched all of Rebels. And so yeah, I've been watching a lot of like Star Wars timeline YouTube videos this week.
Yeah, it's challenging.
It is. When we're going to be talking about it tomorrow. I'm excited.
I know.
Woo! Everybody, if you listen to this show, you should definitely come and listen, and you like Star Wars. Come listen to me and Haley and Ashley Coffin talk about Ahsoka on Pandavision. That's the name of the show. Pandavision. Come join us.
Yeah, that one.
That one. All right. Well, up next, 2023 has been an eventful year for the film industry with Barbenheimer and the strikes, but with only a handful of releases left to still await this year, we're looking ahead to 2024 to give our impressions and anticipation for next year's releases. And we were just going to go down and just talk about some different releases that we're excited about and kind of how those break down.
I'll kick things off. So we've already talked about Dune 2. Had we not, that would have been my first choice there now that it's releasing in March. But the next one on the slate is The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is scheduled for release in May of 2024. And, I have not had opportunities to talk about Planet of the Apes, but I really, really enjoy Planet of the Apes, whether it's the going all the way back to the original series that started in the 60s with Charlton Heston. Like, I really think that's like peak sci-fi, like just concept alone and execution, like the way they interweave like time travel and paradoxes and just, having this alternate society and having it all, tie back to being on Earth and seeing the fall of humanity. I just think it's a really rich concept and world. So, Wes Ball, I saw the first Maze Runner film and I thought it was pretty competently made. I think that's when we were kind of in a glut of YA young adult adaptations. Like I think the Divergent series was happening as well. So I did find myself a little burnt out. Like I liked the Hunger Games, but I fell off of the Hunger Games after like the second movie there. But that being said, everything I've heard from Wes Ball, it seems like he is pretty excited to tackle this, and I know I don't have any of the cast on hand right now, but I do think they have a pretty talented cast, and I'm just excited to get more Planet of the Apes. I don't know how connected this is going to be to the previous trilogy we saw with Andy Serkis, but my understanding is that it's going to exist in that same world without necessarily being absolutely beholden to it.
That's awesome. I didn't know this was coming, and I was kind of bummed because we never got to do a Bingers Assemble about these. So maybe we'll take this as an opportunity. Jay Scotty, you in?
Yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm putting together a team
of apes.
How dare you?
You know
what? I did the Darth Vader quote earlier, but I totally could have done Caesar from Rise of the Planet of the Apes. No.
It's the same no.
It's a little different.
No. It's a little different.
It's different.
The Darth Vader's much more guttural.
Yeah. That Vader's just so like monotone and like no. It's such a cartoon. It's so weird.
On the Spotify poll this week, which no do you prefer?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And just put no with like five O's, and they have to decide which is which.
We're gonna give you guys some no's to choose from on the Spotify poll. You let us know which your favorite no in cinema history.
No. And we're not gonna put like the reference. You just have to figure it out.
Yeah, you have to guess which one is which. Yeah, that's the point.
That's stupid.
Yeah,
I love it,
your
though.
point.
Oh, I am, of course, excited to see Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2. Jay.
All them colons.
Yeah,
so
but you were
many
getting
colons.
mad as you were saying it. You're like, this is a long title. I can see it in your eyes.
You almost gave up halfway through. I saw it.
I'm getting winded. Oh my god. It's not really that bad, and actually it's a colon and a hyphen, so just chill out.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Although we didn't type it that way. I still think about the one that came out this year, part 1. It was so much fun. I really enjoyed the big bad being AI. Like, it was so cool that they were making this movie 4 years ago before AI dominated our news feed like it does every single day now. And so it just, to me, that was really cool because it's like, oh, they were telling the future and they didn't even know it back during COVID. And I just think it was a Tom Cruise movie, super well made, super rich cast. Like Scotty and Matt and I had the best time casting about those movies. And it's just like, I want to go to the theater and watch a movie like that all the time. And send Jay Tom Cruise reels on Instagram because he's unhinged.
Probably one of my favorite people on the planet just to follow, just because he's the strangest person I've ever seen
so
in my life.
odd, but he makes damn good movies.
Is he on like social media?
Oh, he's on Instagram.
That sounds fun.
But it's mostly just clips of him like being himself.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you know how to be a person?
That's amazing.
Yeah, I heard like secondhand. I was watching some YouTube channel from this guy that lived in LA and said he ran into Tom Cruise at a dog park and like he was the most down to earth guy. So I just think it's once the camera goes on, he's just like on. He's like, oh, I'm here for the audience. I'm here for the people.
He had this really bizarre clip of him like trying to promote movies and he was eating popcorn and he was like, I love movies, I love popcorn, like clearly. And I was like, he for sure spit all that back out in a napkin as soon as the camera went off. Like he had no clue how to eat popcorn at all. It was like,
I think that he's mellowed, but like, do you guys know the Rob Lowe story about Tom Cruise and his character Chris Traeger on Parks and Rec? He
No.
modeled Chris Traeger on Tom Cruise from when he and
Oh,
Tom Cruise were in The Outsiders together.
I love that.
Oh, it's so
wow.
funny. He's like, we were out, because they were like super young back then, right?
Yeah.
We were out at a restaurant, and Tom is like, I'd like a glass of water. I'd like to be cold. I'd like to have no ice. I'd like to be in a tall glass. And like, that is the Chris Traeger character.
That's
To a
amazing.
T. Oh my God, it's so funny.
I think it was Seth Rogen came out too, like recently, and said that they told Tom Cruise about the existence of internet porn, and this was like 4 years ago, and he had no idea what they were talking about. Like he was like, "What? That's on what? What is that? What is on the internet? Like what?"
like,
It was
"No,
like they
that's
told
not
him for the
real."
first time. I was like, "It's like that's the kind of guy he is, man. He's just locked in. He's making movies all the time. He doesn't focus on anything else."
Well, I always hear that about celebrities in general, like that they just have no like knowledge of the internet. A lot of them, especially like those of a certain age, because like
I mean, who would want to?
Yeah, it's too
Well,
much.
right.
Yeah.
if you live like internet is sort of escapism, and if you live in the world they live in, where everything's done for you, and you just are just having your life be your life, like whatever you want it to be at all times. Like why are you scrolling Instagram? You know?
Your escapism is just sitting on a couch, staring at a wall,
Yeah.
not talking to anybody, pretending to eat popcorn.
Well, getting back to this 2024 slate, I am pretty intrigued by Furiosa, which comes out
Yeah.
in May. That is the Mad Max Fury Road prequel. Charlize Theron's character is going to be the focus of this movie, but Anya Taylor-Joy is going to be playing a younger version of her. Chris Hemsworth is also attached to star in this movie, and I really liked Mad Max Fury Road. I thought it was like it stuck with me. I thought it was really interesting, and I love Anya Taylor-Joy. I think she's just like kind of at the height of her powers right now, and I think she could like with the right writing group and the right group of talent around her, this could be a really cool and interesting expansion of that universe. So I'm pretty pumped about that one.
Yeah, that sounds really great. I didn't even know it was a prequel. I heard they would make it a Furiosa, and I assumed they would make it with the same actress and just continue the story.
Yeah.
But that's actually kind of more interesting in a way. Cool. Man, picking one is not going to be possible, so I'm going to pick 6, and it's the fact that there are 6 Marvel movies coming out next year. Not all Marvel Studios, of course. There's 3 Marvel Studios, which is they've only done one year where they did 4, but this is one of their going full force next year with Deadpool 3, Captain America Brave New World, and Thunderbolts. All 3 I'm really, really excited about, but I've just been more excited for Deadpool 3 since Deadpool became a thing, since it was even in its inception. We first saw those first Ryan Reynolds clips before, that first reel or whatever. I have been excited for that version of Deadpool to join the MCU. And it was like, we didn't think it could happen. That was like, 10 years ago. And we were like, oh, well, that's a different universe, Fox, blah, blah, blah. And now they just own it, and it's theirs, and they're bringing him in. And I cannot wait to hear Ryan Reynolds come in and take the piss out of the MCU and actually just break the fourth wall the whole time and just have a great time. Like, I really, really can't wait for this movie. And it sounds like they're also going to connect it to tons of other, Fox properties, and who knows what else. I'm guessing we'll see some Fantastic Four in there from the past. Who knows? I have a feeling they're just going to take every Fox property and jam it in there, and then also cross it over with the MCU. It's going to be like we've seen with No Way Home, where we're seeing these universes get to collide together. I'm excited about it, and I just trust the team that has been making the Deadpool movies that they're going to do it well. We've seen it done really well, and we've seen it done, I think, kind of poorly with The Flash, where you take these multiple universes and splash them together. That's maybe not fair. I think the way they put them together was okay. I didn't love the movie. But I still loved revisiting those worlds. Even with me not liking that movie that much, I still loved seeing those worlds smashed together. So I'm just really excited for Deadpool 3. But the other 3 Marvel movies are like Madam Web, Venom 3, and Kraven are all coming out next year. And if anybody listened to the MCU cast recently, I had an episode where basically I just ended up defending the Sony verse to Jeff because he hasn't seen any of it. I think maybe he saw the first Venom, and I ended up defending it to Jeff for like 30 minutes and realized that I'm really excited about where it's going. Like, I'm really, really excited about what's happening in the Sony verse. I think they're actually balancing their, the way they're teasing things is actually getting kind of exciting for me. Like they're doing a good job of being like, hey, this exists and this is happening and this is good. And like, even though I don't like all the movies necessarily the most, like I'm kind of excited to see whatever they do with this crossover, you know? I'm pumped for that.
Now, do we want to talk about our least anticipated properties of 2024?
Ooh. This is where we lose the audience.
Everybody's queuing up those 1-star reviews, getting ready to bomb us.
Yeah. I'll kick things off again here, and this one I didn't even know it was not on my radar in any way until I took a look at this list that Jay compiled for us, and for me, it's not even like an active dislike or like hate or anything like that. It's just I could not be more apathetic about the Mufasa movie, the Lion King prequel that's coming out in July. I was initially pretty excited for that Lion King live action adaptation that came out a few years ago, but it didn't do anything for me. It was pretty lifeless, and it was just beat for beat the animated movie, but not as good. So I know it did gangbusters at the box office, so it makes sense that they would want to do a prequel, but I remember saying this when we talked about Lord of the Rings, like way back when, is nothing sacred? Do we really need this? I won't be supporting this one with my wallet.
Who's asking for the Mufasa prequel? Like,
hey, the Lion King that quote unquote live action whatever made over $1 billion. So Disney saw that and they were like, well, clearly everyone wants a Mufasa sequel.
That's the natural progression.
Even though I don't know of a whole lot of people that even liked that movie, but it somehow made over $1 billion.
I'm just wondering, how are they going to incorporate they're going to incorporate the Circle of Life into the marketing. It's like, before the Circle had made its first rotation, there was Mufasa.
There's some characters that just don't need backstory on them. Like, we're cool. I promise we're cool. I don't need more backstory on you.
We're cool.
I am going to have to see a lot of these kids' movies. I'm just, I got kids, and I'm going to have to go see Despicable Me 4. I'm going to have to go see like Sonic 3, all these big sequels. But the one I'm probably least excited about having to go see is Garfield, which comes out in May, because I'll give the audience one guess as to who you think is voicing Garfield. And if you guessed Chris Pratt, you were right. Because of course he is. Because of course, of everyone in Hollywood, we're having Chris Pratt voice Garfield.
He's making that studio money.
Oh my gosh, he's going to work every day in his pajamas doing voiceovers. He's Mario, he's Garfield. I mean, he's
Emmett from the Lego movie.
They're all his voice though. Like, it's just his voice. Like, Mario is just him, and I know Garfield is just gonna be him. Like, I know it's just gonna sound like Chris Pratt.
Hey man, I hate Mondays and I like lasagna, man.
Wait, why would he get those abs to just start doing all cartoons? I don't understand.
Maybe he's like doing crunches while he's in the voice studio. He's he's on like an ab roller or something while he's doing it, or like a Bowflex.
Bowflex.
My least excited I think for is Twisters.
Yeah,
which is a Twister sequel / reboot. It's the same thing of like who's asking for this, but it's all added to it is like they're using the naming convention from Alien and Aliens. Like, that's such a cool like singular naming convention, and for them to do it here makes me feel like it's gonna be cool or like, but plurals. That movie had more than one tornado in it. Like, I don't know.
it's a Twister.
Is it just a remake, or like I always thought that movie was really reaching to give it as good of a plot as it had, because it's like weather scientists.
Twister.
I know, I do too. That's what I'm saying. Like, they do a really good job. If you told me you were going to make a movie about tornadoes and they're the bad guy, like, I'm like, wow, no, you can't do that unless you put sharks in it. That's what we've learned. But like, like, they did it. They somehow came up with this idea. These meteorologists like were heroes. They were fighting for the greater good. They had passion. They had like that movie was great. But I don't know how you do it again unless you're doing the same sort of thing. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how you come up with a second movie about tornadoes where they're the only like antagonist. I don't know.
So, Matt, I hate to correct you, but I think you've misunderstood what this sequel exactly is. It's actually like a crossover with Mattel. They have their whole brand that they're doing. So it's Twister the board game meets Twister, i.e. Twisters.
Wait.
Stop it.
I'll see myself out.
You're fired, Scotty.
It's actually called Twister X Twister.
Oh, God.
Which I think by the way, I think I just made that joke and we all laughed, but like, I think it hit the editing room floor by now, but like Godzilla X Kong. They're named the movie Godzilla X Kong instead of Godzilla V Kong or Godzilla Plus Kong would have been fine.
You're going to take it up with Legendary Pictures, okay?
Yeah. Godzilla X Kong is impossible to read in a story, so I hate it. I hate it so much purely for my role on this podcast.
Because it's stupid.
It is.
Okay, mine's a toss-up between, well, there's several, but since you took Twisters, which I'm glad you did, because stop it. It's a toss-up between Beetlejuice 2, which I really hate that they're doing that, and I know I mentioned it back when it was just, like, first announced, or the Wicked movie musical, because if there's one thing I hate, it's this, like, let's make pop stars sing Broadway songs that weren't written for their voices. Okay, I think Wicked is winning. You know what, Beetlejuice, you're fine.
I'll catch that on streaming at least.
Dip your toe in and decide which one you hate
and
more.
They're making it 2 parts. Oh, God. Ariana Grande, I'm sorry, she's fine, whatever. She's not Kristen Chenoweth. And I just... I'm done.
I do love Ariana Grande, though. I really
she's
do.
cute, but come on.
She's got a great voice, too. I'm not saying she's Kristen Chenoweth.
Like, it's so different.
It's so different.
Kristen was trained in operas. I can't deal with it. It stresses me out.
Gladiator 2 is coming out next year, and Pedro Pascal's in it.
Well done.
Yeah, you mentioned Pedro. It's been a while. I feel like we don't do it enough.
I had to get it in.
Yeah, he hasn't been in the news as much.
Oh, speaking of Bingers Assemble that we did, we should also do an Alien Bingers Assemble. Like, they're doing an untitled Alien movie next year.
Right.
And I'm excited for that.
The last one we got was Covenant, right? Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, which I haven't seen. I haven't seen anything since Prometheus. I actually haven't even seen Prometheus. Like, for whatever reason, I fell off and I haven't just gone back. And so I want to go back and see them all. So we should do a Bingers on those too. Anybody in? I'm putting together a team again.
Mr. Carroll, I'm going to back off doing Bingers Assemble.
Yeah, it gets a little hectic when we do those. All right. Well, we got a Spotify poll?
Yeah.
I hear. What do we got, Jay?
All right. So this week we asked about the Ahsoka primetime spot and if we thought that was a good idea. And we gave the voters 3 options to the question, do you prefer Disney Plus drop their shows late night or in primetime? 22% of the vote, which was the lowest, said late night, which is the way that it had been done before. 34% of the voters said that they like the prime time, and then 42% of the voters said that it just doesn't really affect them. They don't really care.
So really, even the 2 that were opposed to each other were kind of close.
Yeah.
Sounds like, at least for our audience, they can't really go wrong. Okay, well, we've got a couple more stories for the lightning round. Are you guys ready for the lightning round?
Let's do it.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it. You guys know the rules of the lightning round. I'm going to say a story, and you use your names to chime in and say and take and claim that story, and you get 1 rebuttal if you aren't the first to ring in for the entire lightning round. So use them wisely. Up first, Barbie has officially passed the Super Mario Brothers movie to become the highest-grossing film in North America of 2023.
Haley, I just continue to be so glad for this movie. I was listening to the soundtrack today at work because I needed like a little uplifting kind of music day, and I'm glad that this movie has resonated in ways I don't know that they were expecting it to, even though Greta Gerwig knew she was making something very different and very unique and something that was going to surprise people when they saw it.
Is Ariana Grande on that soundtrack? She is.
That's your rebuttal, Jay, and now you're done.
Jay's had a rebuttal. That's at least a tiny butt. Come on.
It's worth it.
Fine, you get 1 tiny butt. And no, she's not.
Up next, Adult Swim animated series Rick and Morty will officially begin its 7th season on October.
No more
Discussages and Octavia. Sounds like a fragrance, Octavia.
Octobia. All right, here we go.
Picturing the Octobia ad, and I can't get it out of my head, and I gotta say it, or it's not gonna come out of my head. I'm picturing Chris Pratt's abs, you know, like it's like a Dior ad, but he's like in Italy or something. And all right, go ahead.
All right. Adult Swim animated series Rick and Morty will officially begin its 7th season on October 15th. The new season will also be available to stream on Max and Hulu in its entirety sometime in 2024.
Scotty. Yeah, I mean, we knew this season was coming. We got a trailer, and I guess my question here is, like, it says it's going to be available to stream on Max and Hulu. How long is that going to be the case? Are we going to start to see past seasons get removed and cost-cutting measures? But the other thing I want to talk about is we did get the news that, so in the wake of Adult Swim cutting ties with Justin Roiland, we got Solar Opposites, we got the 4th season already, and we knew that Dan Stevens was going to step into the role of Corvo, but with Rick and Morty, we didn't really know what they were going to do, and we have got the confirmation that they're just going to be using sound-alikes, and when we got that trailer, we got to hear what those performances sound like, and it really, I can't tell a difference at all, so I'm a little bit behind when it comes to Rick and Morty, but it does give me some hope that at least the continuity will still be there when I do finally catch up.
Rebuttal.
Okay.
It gives me hope for the show for sure, because I do think that like it would be weird if the voices changed too much. They're just so signature. But it, like, I don't know how the whole Justin Roiland thing shook out. I think he was absolved of the charges.
He was.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So he's not canceled, right? I don't know.
The studios launched some hit pieces for sure.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, this guy was dragging us down. He was like never at work. He like never contributed, you know, so they definitely like took their shots.
Yeah, so he wasn't found guilty in a court of law, but he was still effectively like, yeah, we don't like this guy. He's a tool.
Oh, gotcha. I thought there were other allegations or something. Anyway, so whatever about him and his personal or professional life, but like just from like an empathy thing, like it's got to be so weird because those characters came from him. It's like his original shorts with him doing Doc and Marty, and like it just feels so weird for him to be doing both of those characters for that long, and like them to be so signature and his, and then just be like, get guys that sound like him. Like, it just feels so weird to me. Like, it feels like that would feel terrible as Justin Roiland, you know?
Yeah. I want to get in on this one real quick too. Like, I think this is a really pivotal season for this show because it at its beginning, when it was like at its height of its powers, every episode was so good, and like some of the most classic episodes of that show, everyone just drew you in. But these past couple seasons, it's been kind of a tale of two episodes. It's like the episodes are really kind of forgettable and don't really hit, or they're just like great. Like you watch it and you're just like, that was a Rick and Morty episode, you know? So they still have it. I mean, the show still has it. It's just, can we capture that in a whole season? And I think this season, with feeling like it's a fresh thing, new person, new voice, like all of that, it does feel in a way like we're trying to attack it and make it a new thing. And so to me, I think this is a really, really important season for this show.
Absolutely. Anytime you change creative team, it's always like, how is this going to hit? And especially if you've had that sort of like spotty history already, like, how is this going to hit? It was like the biggest show in the world there for a little while.
Yeah.
You know, and it does feel like animation just takes so long to make. It always feels like it's just a little like, I feel like I'm waiting on it forever.
We always talk about Justin Roiland and his connection to the show, but I think people forget that Dan Harmon is also a co-creator. So you bringing up that point makes me think about Community in season 4, how they dismissed Dan Harmon, but after season 4, they brought him right back. So I don't see that happening with this series, but maybe it could.
I do think that Justin Roiland is a really talented creator, and I think he a lot of like all those intergalactic cable, or what is it called?
Interdimensional cable.
Interdimensional cable episodes where you can tell it's just like, and Dan Harmon's involved in a lot of those too. It's like Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland, and they're just like BSing into the microphone and then they animate it or whatever. Like those are amazing episodes, and those are just like pure off the dome stuff a lot of times. And and stuff like that. I just, you can have a perfect sound alike, and there's no way to capture that sort of like visceral improvisation that Roiland was doing. And yeah, I love Dan Harmon, and I really like his influence on that show too a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Up next, Gran Turismo took the #1 spot at the domestic box office this weekend with a muted $17.3 million outing. Blue Beetle took third place behind Barbie with a $12.8 million take domestically, a drop of nearly 50%.
Jay, these aren't very good numbers for anybody but Barbie. I mean, to be pulling in that much money still this late into your run just shows its dominance. I think this movie will end up being the biggest movie in the world. It'll probably pass Mario Brothers worldwide at some point here in the next couple weeks. Gran Turismo, that's not a good start for a movie to be making that much, especially on its opening weekend. And Blue Beetle, we kind of talked about that this was the expectation that it would drop off about 40 to 50% probably in its second weekend, and that's what happened. So again, we're just kind of seeing it play out the way that we thought it would play out. And if you are DC, I think you're probably thinking about how can we get the word of mouth. Unfortunately, word of mouth is oftentimes best generated by the talent, which can't promote it. So they're kind of in a tight spot a little bit. If people aren't going to go see it, they're just not going to go see it.
I'll chime in with a rebuttal. I think one of the things that's important to note about this weekend is that it was the second annual National Cinema Day. So on Sunday, tickets were only $4. So you have to kind of take that into consideration with these, these box office totals. But even taking that into account, I do agree with what you brought up here, Jay. Like, obviously, these movies are not doing as well as these studios would hope that they would. But again, just to kind of, have a little bit of positivity for DC and Blue Beetle. Again, we've talked about how that budget was, a little more restrained than we usually see from superhero properties. I think we said, $104 million. So while it is not great, it's not like the unmitigated disaster that we've seen with other movies like The Flash.
Yeah, for sure.
All tiny, but about Gran Turismo, they pushed their release date.
Yeah.
And I think that gamble did not pay off for them because I don't know if they didn't want to conflict with Blue Beetle, or I don't remember when it was supposed to come out, but I know I was sick to death of seeing those previews, and I was like, I feel like I've seen the whole movie. Like, I get it. And I just think they played their hand way too long.
Yeah.
Up next, Arlene Sorkin, the original voice of Harley Quinn from Batman the Animated Series, has passed away at the age of 67.
Scotty. Matt. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just want to say, this is terrible news. Her voice is a signature voice of my childhood, and the fact that she created this character, along with the writers and directors of that show, it's really, really amazing. And she's one of those characters that didn't even start in comics. They started right there on the animated series and then went to comics. That's a rarity, and that's so cool. And it wouldn't have happened if it weren't for her voice. I really don't believe. Her voice is so signature and so just owns that character from the very beginning. And that's a terrible loss.
Yeah, I'll just tack on and say 67 is way too young. I don't know the cause of death, but condolences to her friends, her family, her fans. And to your point, Matt, the fact that this character made the transition from the animated series to comics, and now we've seen a few different performers take on this role, but I still feel like you look at Margot Robbie, you look at Kaylee Cuoco in the Harley Quinn animated series, and I'm excited for Lady Gaga for her rendition in the upcoming Joker too. But I think they are all, even if they're doing something different, they're still looking back to what Arlene Sorkin did when she originated the role, and it's all homage to what she brought to the table.
100%. I mean, yeah. They all sound so much like her.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Up next, Disney Plus is not moving forward with the Spiderwick Chronicles, its live-action series adaptation of the popular children's fantasy books. The 8-episode series from Paramount Television Studios and 20th Television has been completed and is currently being shopped by Paramount to other potential buyers.
Jay, I know people are like, why are they getting rid of a series that they already completed? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And this is a Disney cost-cutting effort that we have happening here. Essentially, the simple version is that if you make your company less valuable, if you make your product less valuable, you have to pay less taxes on it, right? So the more content you put on the platform, the more valuable your platform is, and the more you have to pay in taxes. So they're looking at the Spiderwick Chronicles and what you're going to talk about next, and the next story too, this other series that are completed. They're doing the cost-benefit analysis, and they're saying we probably don't want to be this valuable of a company to pay this level of taxes, which is a completely asinine thing for the fans, right? Who heard about this series and got excited about it and got invested in it and followed all its production, and then to have it just not appear. And we saw some similar, it reminds me of what happened with Willow, putting it on and then taking it off and not releasing it on physical media. You're gonna lose fans' faith eventually. Like, the more that you see this happen with streaming platforms, it makes people more cautious to buy in on these platforms and to buy in on these properties in the first place.
Absolutely. Up next, Disney Plus has also decided not to stream Nautilus, a big-budget prequel to Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Disney says that it is working to find a new home for Nautilus.
Scotty.
You go ahead, Scotty.
I was just going to say rewind 60 seconds and listen to Jay's take on the last story.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. Killers of the Flower Moon will hit theaters October 20th with a streaming debut on Apple TV Plus to follow at an undetermined date. This pivots from previously announced limited rollout set for October 6th.
Haley. I'm really looking forward to this. This is going to be the third Oscar darling this year in movies because it's got an amazing cast. It's taking on a really tough story that happened in American history, real crime. Just south of me, and so I just saw the posters released today again, the new ones, and I'm very excited. I think if you're looking forward to seeing it and you haven't read the book, be ready for a kind of tough watch.
I'll do a tiny butt here. Haley, you called it a Oscar darling, and I really do think that is the reason for this move. It's not terribly later, but going from October 6th to October 20th, I just think that shows confidence that they think this is really going to be an awards contender and just want to keep it that much closer to those Oscar campaigns. But this is honestly my most anticipated movie of the film now that Dune Part 2 has moved to next year, and that trailer just slaps. I love that song that they use in there with the bass and the indigenous chants. This looks so good, and I feel like Leo is going to deliver. He's had a number of incredible performances, but I feel like this is going to go down in the history books as one of his best.
I concur. I also hope it doesn't take away from the reality of what happened, though.
Oh, for sure.
And lastly, Ridley Scott has a fantastic cut of Napoleon that runs 4 hours, 4.5 hours rather, and features way more Josephine. Matt. Nobody wants to see your 4.5 hour movie.
Take a seat, Ridley Scott.
But if you like Josephine that much, make a Josephine movie.
Right.
I don't know. You
Exactly.
got so much Josephine, you could create the Napoleon cinematic universe here, and your studio will be so happy with you.
I'm seeing a simple solution to this problem. You have a 4-hour movie, and you're like, well, this cut's got a bunch about another character. Okay, split it in half and make two movies if you care that much about it. I will not go to the theater for 4 hours of anything. I can promise you that. I don't care what movie it is.
Oh, man, yeah, very, very rare. There's very few movies I would do that for.
Killers of the Flower Moon is supposed to be pretty long. 3.5, I think.
Ooh, I didn't know it was that long.
It's going to be lengthy.
Bring a catheter to the theater.
I heard Garfield was supposed to be 3.5 hours, too.
Well, we know you'll be there front and center today.
It's releasing on a
That's
Monday.
That was so meta.
That's a really good idea, honestly. Release it on a Monday. Like, it's not a bad idea. Not a bad marketing ploy. All right, guys. Well, that is Multiverse News for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be back next week with lots more news. Hopefully. The news was a little light this week. I'm scared that these strikes are really starting to affect the news. But you know what? We got lots of things to talk about here at this show.
All right. Jay can always walk us through some furniture building.
Yeah.
That's
right.
right.
We'll do a tutorial. We'll go live. Yeah, we'll do the whole thing.
Jay's a master craftsman at building IKEA furniture, apparently.
I have a lot of experience.
All right, Jay, tell them about where they can find you online.
You can find me at Commute the Podcast, where we make a 20-minute weekly educational show teaching you 3 interesting things that you didn't know about on your way to work. So come check us out.
Awesome. And Haley Hobbs, tell them where they can find you online.
You can find me at Source Pages with Brian V. Klein, where we read comics and novels as primers for all the geeky TV shows and movies you love, like Ahsoka. And then, of course, the aforementioned PandaVision coverage for Ahsoka with Ashley Coffin. And we kind of have a rotating panel, but Matt, Jeff, whoever else we end up getting on.
Yeah, I'm on it this week. Come check that out. And J. Scotty St. Clair, where can they find you online?
Yeah, you can find me over at Animation Deliberation, the podcast that takes action, animation, and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. And My Adventures with Superman has 1 episode left, so excited to talk about that show and do a season review. And I think I'm going to have my Multiverse News co-host here on to talk about Solar Opposites Season 4.
Heck yeah. I just finished it last night. Let's go.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. That's TOONED.
Nice. I have to check that out. All right, and I'm going to tell you about a podcast I'm really excited about. It's my favorite to do lately. Multiverse News. You guys need to check it out. Multiverse News, and tell your friends and subscribe and all the things you do to a podcast to help us and to find it sooner next week. So hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, 5-star it, all the things. Really excited to be here making this show. So thank you all for joining us this week, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.
You stay classy, Multiverse.